The latest tech.
I'm Alexa. I can answer your questions.
Interviews.
And we are evolving, and we are seeing an amazing opportunity that's happening.
Accessibility.
Accessibility is one of our core values. It's even a part of our mission statements.
This is DoubleTap TV.
Welcome to another edition of DoubleTap TV. We're so glad you're here this week. We're talking all things Amazon. God, Amazon is fun. Thank you for being with us each and every single week. I love the emails. Keep them coming at feedback@AMI.CA. Send us anything you want, especially complaints about Stephen Scott. If you want to reach out on Twitter, it is @DoubleTapCanada with the hashtag, which is AskDoubleTap. Use that because we've got an episode coming up with all your questions. We're going to feature all the questions, our backlog. We're going to get to your answers, or at least trying to answer them as best we can. I think we'll even bring Sean Priest on that show. I am Mark Aflalo. By my side each and every single week is Stephen Scott. Stephen, welcome back to another episode. Amazon. Oh, so near and dear to our hearts, isn't he?
Oh, it's the other favorite A in my life. Yes, Amazon, brilliant. And what's great, I think, is that every year you tend to get some new products around that, things you may not have thought about at all. It's not just the usual refresh of stuff. You get some new ideas, new products. Sometimes it's the same product wrapped up in a new way, and we certainly have that this year.
Oh God, we have. We have a robot. We've got a robot Echo that will roam around your home and follow you and let you connect to people wherever you are. I don't know if that is super creepy.
No, it's cool.
It is cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it's cool.
When they can climb upstairs like that Boston Dynamics dog, then I think we're going to get to a point where this might be cool. But I don't know, $1,000 versus $10,000. I might have to go with the Amazon robot before I go with the Boston Dynamics.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Just buy two of them.
Our budget. Maybe we'll have to ask for an increase on the budget of this show. Maybe we'll do it that way.
That's a good idea.
Stephen, when it comes to these devices, we got to first talk about the entire kind of state of these smart speakers, because we are still in a point in time where we've got Amazon Echo devices. We've still got Google Home devices, although I'm not seeing much innovation there. And we're seeing still the iterations of the HomePods and Apple's home ecosystem. Now, these companies are somewhat coming together, and there is going to be a uniform platform that is going to control all these things. So if you own Amazon Echo devices, if you own Apple HomePods, if you own the Google Home, they will be able to cross-communicate with each other. So no longer are the days where you're going to have to pick what your allegiance is, because we will be able to work amongst another. It's like a friendly ecosystem of smart home devices.
Yeah, although I have to say, I don't know about this, because as much as I think that the uniform platform is good, and I do, I don't think that matters as much, especially about the devices themselves, because oftentimes the challenge is, and the real challenge is, you buy something from TP-Link or you buy something from IKEA, like a bulb or whatever, and those might not speak together on the same network or whatever it is, or however they all communicate. It maybe just doesn't work the same. So that can be a problem. But in regards to the speakers themselves, I think the challenge for me is that, the Amazon Echo devices really have got it right. Not just in terms of their smart home capability, because they all arguably have that, but with the functionality of the device itself. Now, I think Google Home does have a lot to offer, but it's just not apparent to me. And Siri on HomePod is great if you like music, but that's kind of it, right? So I'm not sure if anything can really beat Amazon at the moment. That may change, but I agree with you about Google. I think they're lagging behind a little bit.
Yeah, I would love to see Google's artificial intelligence and some of the software design and AI incorporated into the Amazon ecosystem, because I think that's where it's lacking. It lacks the natural speech recognition and that kind of follow-up conversational stuff. That's where I find the Amazon ecosystem is a bit lacking. However, because they were first to market, and because people were so quick to adopt and program to their skills and make their devices cross-compatible and work so seamlessly, they really got an edge up on the competition. And there's no arguing that today.
It is interesting. So I love my HomePods and I love having them in the house, but I found I don't use them as much. And what I actually did recently during a Black Friday sale was buy a couple of extra Echo Dots, or the Echo 4th generation, the big ball ones that I think are quite cool. That's the Echo Big Ball. That is the trademark name I think they should be using.
Yeah, Echo Big Ball.
Absolutely.
You heard it here first.
As opposed to small ball. The small ball's nice, but that's more for the bedroom. But I do think it's kind of cool how they've done it, because you can, for example, pair them up. And because I'm asking that speaker all the time to play my music, to do all the things I want it to do, and especially play music, I tend to find I'm just pushing everything towards that one single device, and my HomePods just sit there. And the Google, well, it hasn't even been plugged in for months.
Yeah.
So, it's just, I don't know. I think Amazon's got the edge.
They do have the edge. And earlier this year, or actually, sorry, last fall, they made some huge announcements. They made some really cool announcements with some interesting integrations, with some good partnerships. Of course, we saw Astro the robot get unveiled on stage. And normally there's an element of kind of in development, things going on that are kind of exclusive, and that's the case with a couple of their products. So let's take a quick break here, and let's come back and let's dive into some of these devices in particular and talk about what sets them apart, why they're different, what makes them better, and which one you might want to buy for, I don't know, some kind of upcoming Mother's Day or Father's Day. It is Double Tap TV. I am Mark Aflalo with Stephen Scott each and every single week. Again, if you want to get involved, let us know what ecosystem you're into. I think you're probably into one. I think you're into Amazon. So feedback at AMI.CA is our email address, and of course on Twitter at DoubleTap Canada with that hashtag, which is AskDoubleTap. And we'll get to those devices in just a moment here on Double Tap TV.
For more great Double Tap TV content, visit AMI.CA/DoubleTap. This is Double Tap TV.
We are back on Double Tap TV. Thank you very much for being here each and every single week. This week, we are talking all about Amazon's latest devices, which by now could actually be in your hands if you've pulled the trigger on your Amazon Prime membership and hit buy on that shopping cart. I am Mark Aflalo with Stephen Scott by my side. Stephen, where do you want to start? I think, in terms of excitement about devices, and let's put the Astro the robot, keep him towards the end because I think he's still a project in development. But the Echo Show 15 is one of these devices that really piqued my interest because in my house, I try to put an Echo device in every single room. But I really am trying to get rid of having a paper calendar on the wall that tells everybody when their homework is, that tells everybody when my son has events and my daughter has events. And I've always been trying to find a way to put some kind of device up on the wall that we can use to do grocery lists easier, to share calendars and stuff like that. And I think the Echo Show 15 might be that device.
I think you're right. And, I think what's good about it is it gets it away from the worktop. I often have my wife say this, this is a great device. I love having it here, but could you just get it off the worktop because I've got things to do and I need the space. So having this on the wall just is absolutely fantastic. So you can hang this up on the wall, you can plug it into a nearby outlet, and that's you. You've got Lady A, as I like to call her, on the wall, which is really cool. And like you say, it replaces a lot of that paper-based stuff, sticky notes and calendars and all the rest of it. I think up until now what we've seen is appliances start to build in this kind of functionality, like Samsung's smart fridge, right? But that's a very expensive addition to any home. And of course, you may not have the room for a big American-style fridge freezer. So, that means you'd have to, and I have to say, that's all running off Android. How long will that be supported in that particular fridge freezer? I don't want to be updating my fridge freezer every year. Whereas with an Amazon Echo device, you're going to get those constant updates. It will give you a couple of years of use, if not more. And you've got it all there in just one simple place. So I think this is a really good idea. I think, and it takes the Amazon Echo experience a little bit further. It's not just another Echo Show or another Echo Dot.
Yeah, no, hardware-wise, it's got a 15.6-inch screen. It is packaged in this almost picture frame kind of look, almost like that Samsung Frame TV look. It's a full HD display. It retails for under $300. And as you said, the whole interface itself is meant to be a home hub. It's meant to be there. It is thin. The power cable is extremely long and thin as well, so you can fish it through a wall and get it to that outlet. So it has that outlet, so you have a nice seamless look. It really does look like it's supposed to be this center showpiece. And I think that it's something that I could find myself definitely using on a daily basis.
Well, interestingly, I did approach Amazon to find out about what accessibility would be in this, because up until now, all of their devices have had a screen reader, built-in zoom magnification. So lots and lots of accessibility features built into it, which is great. There are a few question marks over what will be inside this device in terms of voice view, how accessible it will be, how usable it will be, because there's one thing about accessibility that has to come with it, and that is usability. It can be as accessible as it likes, But if I can't work it, or it doesn't make sense to me what I'm doing, especially in my head, and you can tell me what this might look like when it's turned on, Mark, but I get the impression we've got lots of little boxes, maybe like a calendar, maybe like a sticky notes section, all of that, all independent of each other. And that can be a bit tricky to navigate. So we'll see what happens when it comes out. I'm certainly going to get my hands on one, and we will talk about it more here and on Double Tap Canada. But yeah, I'm intrigued to see how this goes and how this actually works, to see how functional it is for us blind people.
Yeah, you want to talk about accessibility question marks. The next device that caught my attention was the Echo Glow. Now, not to be confused with the last generation Echo Glow, which was just a small, round, spherical light. I don't know why they kept that name and changed the device. But this one is an interesting one. It's actually a video conferencing device meant for kids. It actually sits upright on a table. It's kind of this narrow, thin design. It has a screen built into it, but also projects something down on the table, and thanks to sensors, is able to actually let you interact with those. So the goal here, and the example they give is, a kid sitting at home on a table, playing a game, and grandma and grandpa are on the other end, and they're actually interacting in the same game with that kid, and they're projecting this interactive almost board onto a table. When it comes to accessibility, think about that one. How on earth can they, take advantage of all the sensors that are on board there and try to bring that to light in an audible way? That one raises a lot of questions for me, yet it's still a pretty cool device.
It raises a lot of questions for me as well. I mean, from a blind user perspective, that is going to be a real challenge, because there's nothing you'll be able to do there that, especially about the drawing or the whatever it is you've got in front of you underneath this device. I mean, essentially you're sharing a drawing, right? So how is that going to become accessible? That's not really something I think that's going to work at the moment. However, I think about people who are deaf. I think the potential here, the fact there's a screen, the fact that they're able to communicate perhaps with sign language, no captioning, that's the only thing, so it would rely on sign language. But, for someone who's deaf who uses sign language, then that would be a benefit. So, on one hand, it's not great for blind people, good for deaf people to communicate with people from afar. Of course, let's be frank about this. This is built for people who are serving in the army, for example, who want to be able to communicate with their kids, or for, grandparents who live across the country. This is where this is going to come into its own. But it'd be nice to see down the line how perhaps they might even consider building accessibility for blind people into this.
Or talk about people who are in a lockdown and can't leave their house and want to interact with their family. I mean, okay, so let's talk about hardware for a second. It's got an 8-inch screen on the device itself, kind of upright, so you can be looking at that. And it's got that projector, so it can project not only a keyboard, but interactive books and reading material down onto a table. Clearly not a glass table. You want a nice hard surface, which is pretty cool. But lots of sensors and a lot of technology on board. And this is where some of their content partnerships shine, because you're going to have content from Disney, content from Nickelodeon, content from Mattel, and even Sesame Workshop. So it's pretty neat, and it kind of leads me very naturally into this next device, which really isn't a device as much as it's a partnership with Disney, and that is Hey Disney, the virtual assistant that is actually an Echo Show 5 with a special stand. And the stand has little Mickey ears on them, and this is going to retail for under $35 Canadian. It's really meant to go into hotel rooms at Disney resorts and replace the Echo ecosystem with Disney's own personal assistant to help you navigate your trip. However, you're going to be able to not only buy that accessory, but also add that skill to existing devices to give your Echo a little Disney flair to it, which is going to open up the world into that Disney content, which is, I think, interesting if you want to try and get your kids to buy into this ecosystem.
Well, yeah, I mean, they do. Well, do they have an Echo for kids? I think they do, don't they? They've got the Echo for Kids, which is a bit more of a safe environment for kids to operate in. So if you do have a kid who has this,
well, here's the thing: is if you set up an account for your child and you put their proper date of birth in, it's definitely going to restrict access to anything that is not supposed to be in their element, so in their range, so it's going to be like a rating system on TV. So it already does that, which is great. And this just brings in some cool new tools to make it a little bit more kid-friendly in terms of the things you can do with the device.
See, whenever technology comes out, the first thing I do is I always think about the potential. Oftentimes not really the device itself or the service itself gives away much. But if you really dig into it, what this is doing is it's giving you the ability to control aspects of your hotel stay, in this case with Disney, through this Amazon Echo device. Now that excites me because those devices are fully accessible. For example, if I wanted room service, I often have to, navigate these horrible phones in hotel rooms. I've got no idea what all these buttons are. These phones have like 100 buttons on them, and I've no idea what any of them actually do. And, somewhere on the wall is usually printed, in text on the wall and on a piece of paper or in a book somewhere, telling you what all these different numbers are. Well, I can't access any of that. And, I can't even access the phone particularly well. So I've got to engage with something like IRA or Be My Eyes to figure all that out. If I can just speak to the air and say, hey, order me room service, and suddenly room service is ordered, or, turn the AC to a more comfortable temperature, or do whatever it is that I want to do using all that technology in the room, I think that's absolutely fantastic. And that's something that is already starting to happen in some hotels around the world. We're starting to see, for example, hotels using, digital keys that you can use your Apple Watch for to get in and out of the room. I had a friend once who told me that he was able to, at last, actually operate the hotel TV, the AC in the hotel room, all through his Apple Watch.
That's pretty cool.
That really opens up the world. So, it's something that's kind of cool and a bit gimmicky to a lot of people, but to us blind people, it's access. So I'm very excited about this.
Yeah, I'm excited about it too. More devices coming up. Let's take a quick break here on Double Tap TV. He is Stephen Scott. I am Mark Aflalo. Again, if you want to get involved, feedback at AMI.CA is our email address. And on Twitter, we are at Double Tap Canada with the hashtag, which is AskDoubleTap. Back in a moment.
For more great Double Tap TV content, visit AMI.CA/DoubleTap. This is Double Tap TV.
We are talking all things Amazon on this week's episode of Double Tap TV. Thank you guys so much for being here. I am Mark Aflalo with Stephen Scott by my side. We've talked about the Echo Show 15. We've talked about some Disney partnerships and fun stuff. Let's talk about health for a second, because Amazon's now diving into the health game. My God, you think there are enough people in the health market? You got Peloton, you got Echelon, you got Apple TV, you have Apple Fitness, you got, name it, Nordic Track. Everybody's into health and fitness these days. So Amazon's hopping on board with a new device called the Halo View, which is just under $100, and it's basically just a Fitbit with their own kind of spin on the fitness world.
Isn't it funny how we talk about this technology now? Oh, it's just another version of a Fitbit or whatever. Actually, the technology inside this thing is incredible, right? But we've forgotten about that. The amazing tech in there that measures our steps, that measures our calorie intake, or measures our blood pressure, or whatever it does. Yeah, it's great to see that Amazon are joining the space. A lot of people will be excited about it. I'm not, because I checked with Amazon, and this will not be an accessible product to blind people. Nothing in there in terms of ability to increase text size, no voice view, so no screen reader. So I'm out on this one.
So let's move on to the Ring lineup for a second, and I'm going to gloss over a couple things. They announced the Ring Alarm Pro, which is a whole do-it-yourself alarm system with a whole set of cameras that are now wireless, so you can actually incorporate those into the camera ecosystem. And again, you can view those on Echo devices, which is pretty cool. But the specific product I want to talk about for a couple seconds here is the Always Home Cam drone. Now, they talked about this 2 years ago, Stephen. It's taken quite some time to get to market. I know you haven't had a chance to play with it yet. I'm still waiting for mine to arrive here. But we're talking about a autonomous drone that can fly through your home on set patterns and actually allow you to view things everywhere. So instead of having cameras in every nook and cranny in your home, you can actually fly something through it.
Yeah, I like the idea of this, but I've heard from a number of my viewers here on Double Tap TV who are quite concerned, blind users who say, well, hang on a minute. Let's imagine a situation where you have someone who checks in on you because, you want someone who can see to essentially keep an eye on your property or whatever. How do you know that they're not, following you around in your home? If you can't hear this thing moving around, I assume you can, but if you can't hear it, or perhaps it just plonks itself in the middle of the living room and just sits there and watches you all day, that can be pretty terrifying. So, there are some serious security questions to be asked about these kind of devices in the home and who will have access to them.
You know what? Unless they manage to figure out how to make propellers silent, I promise you, there is no way that this thing is going to be flying through your house, following you, without you knowing it.
Okay, well, that's good. That's comforting.
So that is the always home drone. I mean, I got to play with it, which is pretty cool. And of course, we must talk about Astro, the robot. Available as early access, so this is still kind of a beta test. I mean, it's basically an Echo Show, so the screen on wheels. And it has a cute little animated face that will walk around and, blink at you. And you can summon it on command whenever you need to. So instead of having to put one in each room, it'll just drive around. And of course, it's going to dock itself when it needs to charge. I mean, it's definitely going to taunt my dog. I can promise you that. But it can't go between floors, so I guess I'm gonna need one on each floor.
Yeah, that's the problem. I think this is a great idea, and I think this is definitely a prototype of what is to come. I always feel with these devices, we're kind of being shown what the world could be like so that we can be prepared for when the robots finally do arrive. And it's a case of, when it finally does arrive, but it is actually taking over our life. I don't believe in the idea they're all going to come and kill us all. I mean, that might happen, but I don't think it's likely. I think they will just be there to be subservient, and we'll just, treat them in that way, and we'll talk to them, and they'll go and get us drinks, and that suits me fine. But I think it's a really interesting design because, like you say, it can't go upstairs. So I don't know how this works. I mean, fine if you're in a bungalow or a low-floor house or low-floor property, but if you need this thing to go upstairs, you got to carry it up with you. I don't get the point. I don't understand. And also, what is
maybe
it?
a leash with a retractable system so you can carry a harness. I'm going to walk around with a harness with my Astro robot on me.
What do you do with this thing? I mean, what's different from just having a number of Echoes around the home? I don't get it.
I don't know. We're going to have to get someone on to talk about it. So there you have it, guys. Some new announcements from Amazon this past fall, which we're seeing arrive in people's hands now and over the holiday season, which is really fun. I got to figure out that, that robot. We're going to just plant it in Steven's house. And, thank you guys for being here. On behalf of Steve and Scott, I am Mark Aflalo. We'll catch you on our next episode of Double Tap TV.
Hosted and written by Mark Aflalo and Stephen Scott. Integrated Described Video Specialist Ron Rickford. Coordinating Producer Jennifer Johnson. Director of Production Kara Nye. Director Programming Brian Perdue. VP Content Development and Programming John Melville. President and CEO David Arrington. Copyright 2022 Accessible Media Inc.